Hello, welcome back to another Artist Spotlight on Frank Miller. Over his career, Frank worked mostly with one inker, which is Klaus Janson for the most part, especially with Daredevil. And here is issue 181, great book. This is the book that I bought off the rack. Still in really nice shape. A must-have if for those that are fan of Daredevil and Frank Miller. Great story. But as you can see, this is a very typical page by Klaus Janson ink. Frank has, this is very typical of the way he pencil, and a lot of time, Klaus Janson preserve the way of Frank pencil. Love this panel. This is a great panel. Beautiful inking work here. But occasionally, Frank worked with other great inkers, and here is an example of how his art look with Tom Palmer. Okay, this is Annual 14. I don't believe, I'm not sure if Tom Palmer inked this cover. I didn't check the credit, but it's a beautiful cover. It works with the color scheme. And the first, at first when I flipped through this book the first time, it's not very apparent that Tom Palmer ink that much different from the way Klaus Janson would ink Frank Miller. Very subtle, okay? He sees a slight tighter, cleaner lines, but overall, I felt that Tom Palmer wanted to preserve the way Frank penciled, so he didn't alter a lot of things. He kept the line fairly rough, but even little things like this, where you see, a cleaner, rounder anatomy, it's a small touch of his style over Frank. I love this panel right here. I wonder if they bring in Tom Palmer for this book because of the storyline and Doctor Strange, given that he worked on Doctor Strange with Gene Colan quite often for many issues. So this is just a beautiful panel. It kind of gives you a glimpse of how Frank would evolve once he get on to work on Ronin, right? Just look at the details. Really clean, okay? In my opinion, this is tighter than the result if Klaus Janson would ink it. So for me, that's one of the earlier first glimpse that, the differences between Tom Palmer and Klaus Janson. No doubt, I think I would recommend this book to any Frank Miller fan. It's a great story. Good book, good story. And one of the very rare occasions where the great Tom Palmer get to work with Frank Miller. One of the rare times Doctor Doom and Doctor Strange met up. Okay, here is one panel where you see Tom Palmer style show up more apparently. Look at this beautiful drawing of Doctor Strange. Okay, that have Tom Palmer fingerprint all over it. This is just beautiful here. For the most part, I think if Klaus Janson was inking this, the result would be very much similar. I think Tom Palmer might do it a little bit tighter. The line might flow more uniform. But overall, very little difference. Right there, it's very subtle. You know, for those who are familiar with Tom Palmer and the way he ink, certainly the way the folds of the clothing and the way he shade the clothes, the shadow, that's very Tom Palmer-ish right there. And right here, you know, as you can see, this panel right here look a lot like Klaus Janson. The way, you know, Tom Palmer kept the rawness of Miller penciling. And a lot of times the small things are very subtle as far as the differences between Klaus Janson and Tom Palmer. Just look at this building, okay? It's very straight edge, which is something rare in the way Frank and Klaus would draw in ink. This page here to me have a lot of Tom Palmer imprint on it. The way Peter Parker look, his clothing, all the shading, the inking, that's very Tom Palmer-ish. Perhaps my favorite pages of the book is this double page action here. Beautiful drawing, very clean penciling and inking. I believe it, you know, the way Frank drew and the way Klaus ink, you would not have such a straight edge lines like this. You know, it would be, I think, more jagged or not uniform. So perhaps I think Tom Palmer did clean up, because if you look at the way, you know, it's very typical of Frank and Klaus result to look like this, where the lines are never really straight. It's just not the way he drew. But I think Tom Palmer certainly put in a little touch of cleaning up and straightening up things. Not always. As you can see in many other panels, he kept the roughness of Frank penciling, and that's what makes it a great result. Because, you know, I think Tom Palmer is a genius in that he knows exactly when to not mess or alter the work of others penciler that he worked with. Knowing when to add a little touch and when not to do anything is what what make him so great as far as, you know, being a great inker. It's a beautiful result, no doubt. I wouldn't complain at all if Tom Palmer inked all of Frank's work. As you can see, for the most part, it's hard to distinguish between the result between, you know, Tom Palmer or Klaus Janson. More often than not in this book, I think Tom Palmer work have a very similar feel compared to Klaus Janson. See right there. Here's another example of very clean lines. Very straight edge buildings. That's more, I think, Tom Palmer's doing than the way Frank drew. As you can see, this is more of the way Frank drew. You know, it's not straight, it's not uniform. Just the little things that differentiated the way Tom Palmer ink and Klaus Janson ink. That has Tom Palmer fingerprint all over. Same thing with this page. Look at this. That Peter Parker, the inking job on that's this double page also have a lot of Tom Palmer in it. For those that didn't know the story, but after Frank Miller planned to leave Daredevil, he was supposed to take over drawing Doctor Strange. But unfortunately, things didn't happen, and he went on over to DC and did Ronin. There are ads in many books that advertise Frank Miller coming over to Doctor Strange. But for us fans, that never happened. I remember seeing that ad and I was somewhat excited, you know, because I was not a big Doctor Strange fan back then. Look at this page. Here's another double page that have a lot of Tom Palmer fingerprint on it. Let's look at that. A little bit tighter and cleaner than just Klaus Janson style. Overall, it was a great collaboration between Frank Miller and the great Tom Palmer. I love it. I recommended this book to many people over the years that, you know, if you're a fan of Frank Miller and Tom Palmer, it's a must-have book just to see how their work look like together. Okay, and that's it for this book. Perhaps my favorite collaboration for Frank Miller is the next book. I have to say thank you Dr. Von Schiller to send me this copy because I could not find my copy off the rack. Not sure what happened to it. I did buy a copy when this came out because the cover is so awesome. To me, one of my favorite covers of the Frank Miller run. It's beautiful. It channels his transformation to his style in Ronin. You can see it. You can see his transformation a little bit right here. So John sent me this copy, and inside you have the masterful work of Terry Austin. I have always been a huge fan of Terry Austin, but this book sealed it for me as far as his greatness. Okay, I can't say enough on how beautiful this book is as far as the inking is concerned. Frank is Frank, okay, but I think Terry Austin add a lot of his own touch to it that make it so beautiful. Just look at the lines are so clean. And Terry Austin have a way of just knowing, you know, this beautiful curve. Look, very subtle roundness of everything where, you know, Frank drew a little more jagged, more rough with the lines. But I think Terry Austin did a beautiful job of smoothing out a lot of things. Just look at that. The result of this book is very, very different from the way, you know, Klaus Janson or Tom Palmer would have inked. Just look at that. And, you know, many of this, the way Frank drew, you can still see it, okay? So the imprint of Frank Miller penciling is still there. It's just very subtle the way Terry Austin ink and the smoothness and the roundness of his lines. Just make it much cleaner. Just look at that. Another must-have books if you're a Frank Miller and Terry Austin fan. To me, this book is perhaps one of Terry Austin's finest work because it really showcases his brilliance as far as an inker is concerned. Because I think, after I saw this book, hands down, it's my favorite inker for Frank Miller. Okay, just look at that picture, okay? Beautiful. Compared to a similar pose with Klaus Jensen. Okay? Just look at that. And then look at this. That's, that pose alone is just gorgeous because it looks so great the way Terry inked that. This is a great story too. Beside the beautiful art, look at that. Okay. The delineations of the muscle, everything. It's just so much tighter with Terry Austin inking. Look at that panel. Perhaps one of the best looking pans right here. Look at this. I would not have any trouble at all saying that I wish Terry Austin could have inked this entire run, because I think the result of this book, the collaboration between the two of the masters, would have made this one so much more beautiful than other inkers. Brilliance. One of these days I will do a spotlight on Terry Austin for sure. Definitely one of the few inkers that I want to do. I already done an inker spotlight on Tom Palmer. Terry Austin will be another inker, and then you have Joe Sinnott. There's a few inkers that deserve to have their own spotlight because, as I mentioned in a few videos, that I think inking is very underappreciated, and it is an art form that is not easy. The right inkers can make the result very beautiful, and the wrong inkers can damper the result for sure. Look at that panel. For sure, they did not work more together, but I am at least grateful that we get a glimpse of how beautiful the result can be if they work together is in this book. Great stuff. I can't recommend enough for those to go out there and buy this book if you don't have it, because if you're a Frank Miller fan, if you're a Terry Austin fan, this is as good as it can be. As far as, the two of them combine their brilliances. I just love this page. And that is it. And that will conclude my spotlight on Frank Miller. I think I said everything I can say about Frank Miller. And thanks for watching. Until next time.